Assignment 2, part 5. What we're going to start looking at is I. So I represents the square root of -1. And what will be important later on is if we square I, we square the square root, which cancels it. So I squared based on this is -1. Those are the two things that we will need for this part and for the next couple videos. Okay, so we're first topic in this video. We're using I to rewrite square roots of negative numbers. Write in terms of I, simplify your answer as much as possible. So I'm going to do this in 2 steps, but you can skip it. The way that I look at this is, let me see if I can, one second, that's better. Okay, the way I look at this is the negative here comes out as an I, because technically this is equivalent, and you don't have to write this step, to -1 times the square root of -1 times the square root of 9. All right, so I'm going to do this in 2 steps. You can do it in 1. So I square root 9, and this is a perfect square, so that just equals 3I. And we'll use these imaginary numbers a little later on, apply them to quadratics and in polynomials. Okay, number 2. So that was number 1. Number 2. Same thing. Take out the negative, the -1. That gives us an I, square root 15. And this one doesn't break down, so we are all set. There's no perfect square that goes into 15. How do I know? 1 squared is irrelevant. Does 4 go into 15? No. Does 9 go into 15? No. Does 4 go into 15? No, it's already bigger. So there's no perfect squares in here. Okay, number 3. We get I square root 12. Okay. So we can break this down. So what's the biggest number that goes into 12? 4. So I can break this down, or we can break this down, square root of 4 times square root of 3. And the square root of 4 is 2. So we get 2I square root 3 is your final answer. So 2I square root 3. And number 4, our last example. Okay, there's a negative outside. That's fine. Just bring it along for the ride. Take the minus out, becomes an I, so we get negative I square root 32. So that's the only difference between this one and this one's the negative outside. Now you got to break down 32. Okay, so what's the biggest perfect square that goes into 32? It looks like it's 16. So I can break down 32 to 16 times 2. So we get square root of 16 is 4. So negative 4I square root 2. So that's rewriting square roots without negative numbers. Okay, next topic in Alex. Simplify a product and quotient involving square roots of a negative number. One of these you can cheat and it will still work out right, but I'll show you the proper way. So what I suggest first is always take out the square root of the negative and whatever number is there. Always take out that square root. So always, first step, we're going to do I square root of whatever number is in there. Okay. So number 1. Because if you do this one wrong, this one will never work. If you say -6 times -7 is positive 42, if you give me positive 42 and you break that down, that will be wrong. Okay, you have to take out the negative first. So let's get rid of that wrong answer and let's do it. So, number 1, take out the negative. So we get I square root 6 times I square root 7. Now we can multiply these together. So we get I squared, I mentioned that earlier, and I'll show you that again, 42. Okay. And then our biggest perfect square. Now, if you have to write this on the side, go ahead. These are all perfect squares. 6 times 7. Oh, actually, this doesn't break down. See, none of the 4 doesn't go into 42 even. 9 doesn't. 16 doesn't. Yeah, 25 doesn't. So this doesn't break down. So all we have to do is turn the I squared to a -1. So the 42 doesn't break down. Or you don't have to write the 1. You can just write negative square root 42. Okay, so that's number 1. I'll move this down in 1 second. Number 2, we're going to take the I out of the -50. So now we're allowed to rewrite this as I, and you can make this a single fraction, 50 over 2. So you're allowed to divide this by this. So we get I square root 25, and the square root of 25 is, it is 5. So we get 5I. Okay, if you would like to take a minute and try these two, you can. You can fast forward it, whatever you need. I'm just going to get going. So we'll call this 3 and 4. So number 3, we can go square root of 3 times I square root 27. Now, it is a little bit easier. If you know what you're doing, you could break this down and make the numbers a little bit easier. I'm just going to go and multiply. So 27 times 3 is 81. Okay, that wasn't so bad because this is a perfect square. So the square root of 81 is what number? And you should get 9. So 9I is your final answer. And number 4, now we can shortcut this, take out the I, and we can do 24 divided by 2, which is 12. It's okay to shortcut it. 4 goes into this, so I look at this as square root of 4 times square root of 3, and I call it 2I square root 3. Because they want it simplified as much as possible, so they want you breaking down the square roots as much as you can. And that completes this video.